Welcome back. In Palestine, the religious holiday of Eid Al-Fitr took place amid the resumption of the Israeli genocide since March 18th. From Gaza, our colleague Huda Ghazi with all the details.
Ayer comenzó la fiesta de Eid Al-Fitr, esta celebridad religiosa que viene.
Yesterday, the feast of Eid Al-Fitr began, this religious celebration that comes after the holy month of Ramadan and that all Arab and Islamic countries celebrate.
Considerar uno de los días más sangrientos desde que Israel retornó a la guerra a Israel el pasado 18 de marzo. Decir que en el día
However, nothing was celebrated on the Gaza Strip, and it could be considered one of the bloodiest days since Israel returned to the Israeli war on March 18, yesterday. According to reports issued by the Palestinian Ministry of Health, more than 60 Gazan citizens lost their lives. They were killed by the occupation army and more than 30 of them were minors. That is, we are talking about more than half of the victims yesterday were children and minors who had done nothing except go out to the streets, try to play and try to create the festive atmosphere. Most of the children were killed in the southern area of the Gaza Strip, specifically in the area of Gazans. When they had gone out to the streets, they were playing with attractions. They even wore the typical clothes of this festival and new clothes that their relatives had bought, and many of them even had toys in their hands. Therefore, we can see how Israel deliberately murders children who have no guilt and who do not pose any threat to the occupation army, but only for the simple fact of killing and murdering children.
Para el ejército de la ocupación, pero solamente por el simple hecho de matar y asesinar a niños, y por eso se ha condenado.
And that is why it has been condemned in a very clear way. And the voice has been raised that on the first day of Eid, Israel has made this attack on children in an intentional way to murder them without committing any crime. On the other hand, it should also be said that yesterday Israel denied the proposal that the intermediaries had issued. We are talking about a proposal of urgency that supposedly should have come into force at the Eid festival, but yesterday the cabinet of Netanyahu officially announced that it had denied it. This proposal spoke of a humanitarian truce of 50 consecutive days where it should never have liberated 5 Israeli children. But nevertheless, what the Israeli regime wants is to liberate 10 Israeli hostages alive and 11 corpses. That is, we are talking about approximately half of the Israeli hostages alive. And therefore, what the occupation regime really wants is to implement the proposal issued by Witkoff, Donald Trump's special envoy, which would include the extermination of Hamas leaders and the disarmament of the military wing of the Hamas brigades of Al-Qassam. He has never assured that this is not in his plans, nor to disarm his military wing, nor to exterminate the leaders of the Hamas movement. At the moment, the intermediaries are being pressured by the Israeli regime to find a proposal or for Israel to join what had already been said on January 19th, when the humanitarian truce was officially proclaimed. And he never assures that he will join the agreement that was first agreed on in January, and they are willing to start the negotiations of the second phase. Finally, let's talk about another of the most atrocious crimes that the occupation regime has committed. When the military operation began in the Rafah area approximately 2 weeks ago, Israel began bombing the area of Tal al-Sultan. At that moment, in that bombing, the civil guard, the firefighters, as well as the workers of the International Red Crescent Organization, went to the place of the bombing. However, from that moment on, all communication with them was lost and they disappeared and no one knew what happened to them. The International Red Crescent Organization tried to coordinate with the army to know the fate of those workers, but nothing was known until yesterday. Yesterday, and after receiving the affirmation from the army, other bodies of the Civil Defense and of the International Red Crescent Organization went to the place where the communication with the previous bodies was lost and, unfortunately, they found that the 9 bodies had been killed in cold blood by the occupation army. So far, 8 of the 9 bodies have been found and there is still 1 left under the rubble. Along with these 9 workers of the International Red Crescent Organization, there were also 6 workers of the civil defense bodies, as well as firefighters who had also been killed and executed in cold blood by the occupation army, today. They have been buried, and the International Red Crescent Organization has sent a statement condemning these attacks, since literally the occupation army has killed these people who were only doing their job of saving lives. And this crime has been officially condemned by the occupation army against these humanitarian workers on the Gaza Strip.